And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Matt Miller today, here to help take you through the closing bell with the global simulcast. We're joined right now by Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec in the radio booth. Katie Greifeld has the day off. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, including our partnership with YouTube. A third straight session, Carol Massar, where we see the S&P at a record high.
Everything is awesome. Yeah, it's interesting to see the momentum continuing to the upside. I was looking to try and see what groups, but no surprise with Nvidia. It's big investment in OpenAI. We had some calls from Wall Street, some upbeat ones when it comes to some names in the space. You've got the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, the SOX guys, up about 1.6%. So some outperformance there in a big way.
We did just have Paisley Nardini on our program. She's over at Simplify Asset Management, Matt, and she was essentially saying, hey, I'm a little concerned that we're not going to get the rate cuts that the market is expecting, and we could see in the coming weeks, coming months, a little bit of a pullback. She's optimistic in the long term, though, so if we do see a 10 to 15% pullback, she's buying.
You know what's interesting? This morning, I would have thought people were more concerned about this $100,000 visa program.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about how many IT workers have these H-1B visas and how expensive it might be to reduce that. I think one estimate in Eric Fan's story from last year was that a 10% reduction in H-1B visas would cost the U.S. $86 billion in GDP, but it hasn't seemed to bother investors at all as we move towards the closing bell.
Yeah, just one more thing, I guess, that they just have to trade around, at least for the moment, until we get a little bit more clarity in terms of what actually happens next. But as you take a look at the green on your screen, and maybe ratifies exactly what Matt was talking about. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up more than 70 points, or 0.2%. That's a record high. The S&P 500 up almost 30 points, or 0.4%. That's a record high. The NASDAQ Composite up about 160 points, or 0.7%. That is also a record high. Meanwhile, you take a look at the Russell 2000, which last week closed at a record high of 2467 and change. It closes just a tad below that, but still higher on the day, up by about 0.6% to close out this Monday.
All right, checking in on the S&P 500, Romaine, you've got almost an even split, even with records on Wall Street. So what does that mean? 245 names in the S&P 500 gaining ground today, 256, Matt, to the downside, 2 unchanged.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We've had pretty bad breadth all day long. But as Romaine and I were talking about, it's all about the big tech stocks, information technology, a big green slice of your IMAP pie right now. And after Nvidia said it's going to invest $100 billion in OpenAI, what else would you expect? That's the kind of announcement that absolutely powers the market higher.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to start with Nvidia, Matt, because that one finishing just off its highs of this session, but still up just shy of 4%. As you said, Nvidia going to invest $100 billion in OpenAI to support the building of new data centers and the infrastructure needed to power AI workloads. Keep in mind, it's a letter of intent, which is kind of just interesting. So it's a plan. So we'll see how it all plays out. But nonetheless, it did send Nvidia much, much higher. In fact, the whole semi group was higher, as I said earlier, on a bunch of calls, too, from the analyst community. Hey, I got to go to Oracle, finishing pretty much at its best levels of the session, a gain of more than 6%. This as the company is said to be responsible for the algorithm, the securing of the algorithm for TikTok here in the United States.
You think that's driving the stock higher, TikTok?
You don't think it is?
I think maybe it's because they have 2 new co-CEOs.
You think it's because they have 2 new co-CEOs?
I mean, is TikTok going to really power their earnings higher? It's not the kind of $300 billion order that you get from Nvidia GPUs.
Hey, where's Katie?
So, where's Katie?
Wow. She's on TikTok at home.
Well, listen, Oracle has this close relationship with TikTok in the United States. So securing and being still involved in that certainly would mean some business momentum for them. I don't know. Everything Oracle does, they seem to be on fire right now. So
I feel like they weren't getting kicked out of the TikTok story.
Yeah.
By the way, the stock has doubled year to date.
I know.
Doubled.
I know, which is why we did like a 10-minute segment on what's going on with Oracle, because they just seem to be everywhere right now.
Okay. This segment is going to be 10 minutes, are we? I mean, there's more other stocks moving.
All right. I've got one more. Ticker is BETR, Better Home. And what is it? Better Home and what?
And Financing Holdings. It's right there on the screen in front of you.
Okay. Well, I've got, not like you TV people who've got like, stuff. I've got a lot of things I got to do over here. Stock is up about 46,
We have no minions.
47% at the close. It was up as much as 175%. This happened as EMJ Capital's Eric Jackson said the hedge fund was long the stock. I mean, this is the guy, behind Open Door, and we saw the momentum there. But this one, I mean, it's not even a big company, is it? I mean, we're talking about a $764 million market cap company. But nonetheless, he came out and said he's long, and investors moved into it.
All right. Those are the gainers. I got the decliners. I'm watching shares of Kenvue actually falling close to a record low, or closing at a record low, excuse me, down 7.5% today. This after the Trump administration, we learned plans to link the active ingredient in Tylenol to autism and warn pregnant women against using the medication unless they have a fever. We are expecting President Trump to make some comments soon when it comes to this. We will bring those comments to you live when we do get them. Formerly the consumer healthcare division of Johnson & Johnson, by the way, so only a few years as a independent spun out company, Kenvue that is. Disney shares finished the day down 1%. It was down as much as 2% earlier in the session. It bounced higher a bit after the company said that Jimmy Kimmel Live will return to air on Tuesday, ending a suspension imposed following controversial remarks that he made about the assassination of Republican activist Charlie Kirk. We're getting some more details about that. We are reporting that Kimmel will address the Kirk controversy when he returns to the show. Yes, he will. He will not.
What if he just came back and didn't mention it?
That would be weird. And he will. Also, we learned that he personally negotiated a return with Bob Iger over at Disney, in addition to Walden as well. Disney shares falling by about 1% today. And finally, some M&A news sending shares of Compass, the real estate firm, lower today, down 15.7%. Compass shares fell after the company agreed to buy Anywhere Real Estate. It's a $1.5 billion stock deal. Anywhere has brands including Coldwell Banker, Corcoran, and Sotheby's International Realty. So it's going to be a big player when it comes to the largest residential brokerage in the U.S.
All right, let's get a quick check on yields here. We actually did see yields actually rise today modestly, basically about 2 basis points almost across the curve, 3 basis points on the short end. This despite some of the commentary that we heard a little bit earlier from the Trump's appointee to the Fed governorship, Stephen Myron, giving a speech at the Economic Club of New York, saying that he actually wants to see a more aggressive rate cutting cycle to protect the labor market. And then we have heard from Beth Hammack and a few other Fed members kind of said, well, maybe not. Let's hold off here. So interesting to see who the market's paying attention to right now, which seems to be more on the cautious side than anything else.
All right. So let's get to some chats that were on our radar. And Walmart is adding home delivery for things like Ozempic and other refrigerated drugs. Apparently, they've offered refrigerated drugs at Walmart, but you usually have to go in and pick them up. But
refrigerated drugs?
Yeah. Well, Ozempic,
got to keep it in the refrigerator.
You have to keep it in the fridge.
Oh.
Yeah, things like insulin, got to keep in the fridge.
Oh, okay.
Amoxicillin, got to keep it in the fridge.
Okay,
so usually you can go and pick it up at a Walmart, but now they are actually delivering it to your door.
Yeah, they've got specialized insulated bags. They can be delivered in as fast as 30 minutes, along with groceries and other products in a single online order. The company says it can now deliver 90% of prescription medications in 49 different states.
Wonderful. It's funny, I live in one of these fancy apartment buildings in New York City where you get everything delivered. They actually put a refrigerator in the package room because I guess people are getting, deliveries of various drugs and things that they need.
The rise of delivery has wreaked havoc on, this is a very New York City centric story, but it's wreaked havoc on doormen and their jobs, because they're now basically in charge of just coordinating package delivery to individual apartments. And if you don't have somewhere where you can store refrigerated things, then it makes it very difficult to get those groceries to you without them spoiling.
So that's our interesting story. What do you have?
Well, speaking of weight loss, you actually need to come down a little bit. Your shot's a little bit out. Your head's a little bit out of the shot, Carol Massar. But, when we talk about the Oura ring, you talk about your health. I have one. I think Tim's right. Tim's a healthy guy as well. $11 billion valuation on this company now after their latest fundraising round, and really raising a lot of questions as to kind of where this company goes next. It's basically a single product company, obviously a wildly popular single product company, but the big question is, how do you evolve from this?
I think it's interesting. One thing that you do is you make a deal with American Express.
Yes, I was just thinking
Have you seen the Platinum card? So it's going to cost more, I think, to get the card, but one of the perks that Amex is offering you is you can get I don't know, $200, $300, $400 off of your Oura ring,
Yes.
how much these things cost. And nearly everybody has now one of these kind of fitness measurement devices. If you don't
But
want
you
to wear
know
the
what?
ring, you have the Whoop band. If you don't want the band, you have the Apple Watch. If you don't have that, you have the Fitbit.
Samsung.
But Matt, what's not included in that is the subscription fee that you have to pay to get all the features of this, right?
Wait, you have to buy for Oura the hardware and have a
Yes.
subscription?
Yeah, that's why it makes sense to give away the
Why do
hardware for
that?
free, $6 a month.
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
Or about $70 a year. So it kind of makes sense. They want to get as many of these things out there so people are just paying that subscription
Or
fee.
you could just go exercise, folks, and just do it.
How do you know how hard you're working, though?
What is wrong with Carol?
I don't know if I've had enough strain, right? Or if I've recovered well enough to hit the gym. That's why you have to have the Whoop, which, by the way, you only pay a subscription. They never upcharge you for new hardware, except when they do.
All right. I think your Whoop's telling us we have to go.
All right,
My heartbeat is, going on right now.
And I bet you've got something to measure it, which is so wonderful.
I do. My
See?
blood oxygen level going through the roof.
I'm so happy. We want to make sure you stay healthy.